to make this all happen. He's got to be thinking inside his cockpit right now.
Whoa, big crash!
This is an IndyCar driver's nightmare. Once you go airborne, you are no longer in control. At that point, the car decides your fate. In 2003, Kenny Brack would be subjected to an unprecedented 214 Gs when his car was launched at 220 miles per hour and sent into the fencing at Texas. To put it in perspective, the average roller coaster pulls from 3 to 5 Gs, and Brack survived. But this was not the first time that the chassis had ended up going airborne. Quite the opposite happened. In the 2000s, the current chassis, the IR-05, had significant problems concerning its tendency to go airborne under multiple conditions. In 2003, the legendary Mario Andretti would climb into Tony Kanaan's car for a qualifying confidence run after Kanaan received a crack in his wrist at a recent crash at Twin Ring Motegi. During an April test session for the Indianapolis 500, Andretti, just after posting a lap of 225 miles per hour, would go airborne when his car drove over a safer barrier wedge dislodged by Kenny Brack's engine expiring, causing Brack to crash. Not even 2 years later, during a 2005 Indianapolis 500 practice session, Sam Hornish Jr. was running practice laps when Paul Dana crashed ahead of him. Hornish chose to drive over a half shaft from Dana's car, unknowingly sending him skyward. Thankfully, both Andretti and Hornish would walk away from the crashes unhurt. In 2005, driver Ryan Briscoe, running at Chicagoland, would experience a nasty crash that would split his car in two after his car climbed over the left front of Alex Barron's car. It would send him into the fence. The injuries he sustained from this crash included 2 broken clavicles, a concussion, a bruised lung, and multiple contusions to his arms and legs.
And Dario Franchitti, we've got a big yellow coming into turn 4. All kinds of debris, and it's the 33, the back end. That is Ryan Briscoe. Most important thing is get him extricated from that vehicle.
Those cars are meant to come apart like that, Todd. I know it actually looks like it's just a mess. That's the engine front in the car, possibly. There's a lot of debris going on there. The bell housing and the transmission, it's made to break away from the cocoon, as we call it, the car. There you can see right there some oil fires starting, a lot of body work that's sitting on top of that. The engine must be somewhere else because it looks like it's possibly just the bell housing and the transmission. Actually, you can see on the very underside, what a ride that was. Remember we had last year with Buddy Rice getting airborne coming out of turn 2 when they touched wheels. And here's the situation. Briscoe going underneath. Barron trying to come down on the racetrack. They both are going for the same piece of real estate. And what ends up happening is those rubber tires touch, and then all of a sudden the car starts to go in the air. Remember, we're going 215 miles an hour. Look at all the debris that's going all around the racetrack. This will be a long cleanup time. And there's the engine separated from both the transmission and the monocoque where the driver sits. That's what we call kitty litter right there going on the racetrack, Todd, to dry up all that oil that starts to come off of those
Scott,
vehicles.
let's look at this one more time and see if we can see the genesis of this accident.
Now looking straight ahead, you can see the cars just starting to come together, a little bit of rub, smoke coming off the tires when they touch, and then all of a sudden, as we're riding on board Scott Dixon's car, he sees this. He was actually a spectator in the crash just last year. Now watch those left side wheels. Those are down on the flat underneath the white line. He did a great job keeping that car straight with 2 wheels on the 18-degree banking, 2 wheels on the flat down on the entrance.
How could these crashes keep happening? The answer would come from the car's weight distribution. When Dallara made the IR-05, the thin nose was more prone to lift due to the balance of the car being set more towards the rear, with a weight balance of 55% in the rear and 55% in the front. Teams would lower the rear ride height to reduce the drag of the rear wing. This imbalance would make the car more prone to lift in the air and cause the car to do a backflip if it ever lifted. However, that wasn't the only problem that caused the car to lift.
Down low with Dan Weldon, Dario and Danica on the high side. And here comes Marco. Oh, look out! Airborne! Frankini's upside down. Dixon is involved. The wheels touched. Weldon is involved.
Airborne up here got up into the pit. We got him coming down. Copy that. Got you okay?
Looks like Sam Hornish also involved. And right now, folks,
Yeah, he got hit in the head.
think good thoughts. After that, all hell broke loose.
Well, I'm not sure what went on with that, but we're going to have a quick replay of that so you see. Remember, he was trying to get underneath.
Oh my gosh, he goes up and over again?
Oh, can you count this as lucky or what in the world?
That looked like one of those hydroplane blowovers.
My goodness.
All right, here we go. We're going to go on board.
Now, you're not riding aboard a jet fighter right now when you start to see the sky. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
He just checks up and
touches the tire up and over. Reminds me of a ride in a fighter plane.
this is unreal. And there goes the onboard camera.
Oh. You know, we saw him take the steering wheel off, climbing out of the car.
There he goes flying by that camera.
Remember, they're still doing 175 miles an hour just as soon as you get off the throttle going into that turn.
The IR-05 had glaring issues that couldn't be ignored forever. An aging chassis from a split that scarred IndyCar even after its reunification. The nose of the IR-05 was thinner than majority of the chassis that were produced in the past couple of decades, playing a role into the causality of these crashes taking place through the unbalance of the weight. At the front of the side pod, the under-radiator contour, an angled section underneath the radiator inlet, likely to have involved a subdued yet dangerous role in causing these prolific airborne crashes. Something had to be done about these problems. And in 2010, IndyCar would create the Iconic Project, set out to design the new 2012 chassis titled the IR-12. Unfortunately, it would not be in time before the IR-05 would claim the life of IndyCar's most beloved driver, Dan Weldon.
Okay, this is slow motion from high above.
We talked about 3 or 4 wide.
Watch Sebastian Zaveja, right?
Yes.
Little contact right there.
Now he's trying to go from the low side to the high, from the high side down low to get going for the turn.
Oh.
And what ends up happening is that he gets stuck back up there, turned around, tried to take another move going down, guys, and the back end started to come around, and that started the chain reaction.
He was uncomfortable being in the top lane, and he tried, like you said. There's the car. Look, there's 2 cars that are airborne. This puts IndyCar
welding
racing in perspective. This is the horrible accident that everybody has always hoped would never occur.
And as we said, 15 cars we now know of involved out of the 34 that started this race.
IndyCar is very sad to announce that Dan Weldon has passed away from unsurvivable injury. Our thoughts and prayers are with his family today. IndyCar, its drivers and team owners, has decided to end the race. In honor of Dan Weldon, the drivers have decided to do a 5-lap salute in his honor. It will take place in approximately 10 minutes. Thank you.
Put on their helmets, get cinched into these race cars. We hear people say how easy it is, how safe it's become. We forget just how
Despite the death of one of IndyCar's most admired drivers, IndyCar would continue their development of the new chassis. At the beginning of the 2012 season, Dallara would debut their new chassis, now renamed to the DW12 after Dan Weldon.
View of it. Take us through it, Scott.
Well, the DW stands for Dan Weldon, Marty, because he did all the testing on this car before he was killed back in Las Vegas. And the new car does look different than the 11 car. You can see the biplane is more efficient because of the way that the air goes over the front wing. Better impact absorption up in the front area, better use of materials through that area. Larger underwing gives the cars more grip, more downforce because of that large underwing, so you can use a smaller rear main plane. It's 4 inches smaller on this new car. Now, we've had some issues with cars climbing over the back of other cars, so to avoid this, the tail section has been redesigned to avoid the wheel-to-wheel contact. And for driver safety, we have 3 inches of foam behind the driver, 1.2 underneath the driver's seat, and a side intrusion panel to make the car safer for the occupants driving them. You can see here that the new car is definitely lighter than last year's car. We've gone away from the normally aspirated engine to the 2.2-liter V6 turbo, and those will rev up to 12,000 RPMs. The brakes are all new this year, carbon, much like they use in Formula One, so it might be an advantage to Rubens Barrichello. Chevy and Lotus are now joining Honda in the series, and we're now using a hand clutch that's mounted onto the steering wheel, something different for the drivers to...
The evident change of the design of the IR-05 to the DW12 would become apparent in the years following the debut of the new chassis. Lessons learned from the IR-05 would prove to be successful in keeping drivers safe in what would otherwise be considered life-threatening crashes. In the 2015 Indianapolis 500 practice, Helio Castroneves would go airborne after his car snapped and spun him backwards. Thanks to the floorboard cutouts that were implemented at the beginning of this year, Castroneves would walk away unharmed. Rear wing beam flaps implemented as a result of similar crashes would help prevent the car from flipping over if the car got spun around. Only 2 years later, during the running of the 101st Indianapolis 500, the chassis would be put to the extreme test when driver Scott Dixon would be launched into the air, landing on top of the safer barrier and into the fencing. The rear beam wing flaps and the improved safety cell would be the crucial factors that would prevent any injury to Scott Dixon. A decade separated from one another, these two nigh-identical crashes coming up highlighted the lessons learned from the IR-05 to the DW12.
Dan Weldon takes Sam Hornish all the way down toward the grab.
That won't be something that Brian Blindhart...
Wow!
Yeah.
And Weldon upside down.
The DW12 wasn't perfect. However, it made the significant strides in safety on improving what made the IR-05 so dangerous concerning the airborne crashes it would find itself in. Marking a turning point, the chassis has now set the standard for the future. As the new chassis is in research and development, we can look back upon the accidents that taught us to keep improving safety for the current and next generation of drivers. If you like this video, like, comment, subscribe, all of that. And until next time, see ya.